Batman. You've probably heard about him. He's a pretty popular guy. He's got a Lego movie and everything. Dresses up like a bat, fights crime, severely depressed, a real man of the people. He's also collected himself quite the rogues gallery over the years. Iconic villains such as the Riddler, Mr. Freeze, and of course, the white and green criminal mastermind and his arch nemesis, Condiment King. With so many different great villains to choose from, everyone has been wondering who's going to take the spotlight in The Batman Part 2. So much so that I made a video on it a couple months ago. You may have seen it. It's my most popular one. If you haven't, you should go watch it because I think it's genuinely one of the best I've ever done, with some really great points about why I wanted Clayface as the villain of the movie. But here's the thing. Shortly after that video was released, Matt Reeves came out and made it clear that the Batman epic crime saga would never fully embrace the fantastical. So not only is my video entirely irrelevant now, but my dreams of a live-action giant mudman Clayface squaring up with Pattinson are dead, which also means that characters like Killer Croc, Solomon Grundy, and Poison Ivy will most likely not make their way into the universe. At first, that idea sent me into a deep depression, but I've come to peace with it. It's a shame we won't see the universe develop that far, but at the same time, if the DCU is going to have a fully fantastical Batman in Brave and the Bold, I think this is a cool way to give audiences two very distinct ongoing takes of the Caped Crusader. All that being said, it leaves the question of who should be the villain in the highly anticipated sequel open once again. I would still love it to be characters I talked about in that previous video like Hush or Mr. Freeze, who would definitely fit into this universe, but with the recent news I've been doing a lot of thinking about other characters. Last time I missed a lot of villains, so now I swear to go through every single Batman villain and decide how good of a chance they have in making it into this sequel. Don't look at the video runtime, just trust me here, okay? And also make sure to let me know down below who you want to see. I'm genuinely really interested to hear given the news and also, engagement. Anyways, it's time for another episode of America's least anticipated game show, The Bat-chelor, as I search for the most realistic and grounded villain who would be the best fit for The Batman Part 2. Let's kick things off with easily the most requested group of villains for this movie, the Court of Owls. When I tell you I got hundreds of comments from all of you mentioning them, this was not an exaggeration. It is very clear to me that people want to see the court in live action. Hell, even the actors want to see the owls in this universe.
I was definitely kind of thinking that the Court of Owls is probably going to be in the sequel. It definitely seems
don't
like...
say it!
Mommy, I'm literally just guessing. I just keep saying it.
Court of Owls would be dope.
I completely understand why too. Making their first appearance over a decade ago in 2012, yeah, you sit on that fact for a second. They're a relatively recent development in Batman's history, and people are always eager to see new concepts in live action. Surprisingly, they actually made an appearance in Gotham, which I think is an insane and genuinely great show, okay? I will fight you on that. But since their last appearance in 2017, they haven't been seen since. I said they haven't been seen since. It's all for the better if we pretend that Gotham Knights did not happen. For those who don't already know, the Court of Owls are a secret group of elites who have been controlling Gotham from behind the scenes for centuries. With their immense power, wealth, and influence, they pull all the strings and specifically engineer the city to be the way it is. The court was thought to be a myth, but one to be taken seriously. Anyone who dares to even so much as speak ill of them, or God forbid threaten to expose this conspiracy, is swiftly dealt with by the Talon, their one-man army and highly trained assassin. Considering how heavily the Batman played around with the themes of corruption, it makes complete sense to introduce the Court of Owls at some point. If Bruce thought that Falcone's puppeting of the legal system was bad, wait till this man discovers the court. He's gonna lose his mind. The Penguin has already gone out of its way to tease them with a literal court filled with owl silhouette curtains, so it's clear that they're gonna touch on this eventually. There is such an interesting group of villains because of how much they shake the status quo for Bruce. Everything he thought he knew about this city, about his family, about his legacy is revealed to be a lie. Not only is he trying to grasp those changes within himself, but in a way he's also trying to restore free will to Gotham City. And with Batman new on the scene, it makes a lot of sense for him to start pissing off the court. The Riddler began to pull at the thread of Gotham's corruption behind the scenes, and of course looking further into that is going to interest Bruce. For the world's greatest detective, it shouldn't be too hard for him to unravel this conspiracy. The court has carefully constructed Gotham to be the way it is, and now with this Bat vigilante getting in their way, they would not want that at all. It's the most natural way to continue the themes of corruption and really dive deep into just how screwed up Gotham City is. Despite that, I really don't want to see the court yet. That may be a controversial take, but please just hear me out before you have me assassinated. It's a no-brainer to include them in this universe, but I think it needs to be much further down the line. What's so interesting about the court's reveal to Batman is that it shocks his worldview. This is a city he spent his entire life in, pouring his own blood, sweat, and tears into trying to make it a better place. So the revelation that there's been a secret society working under his nose the entire time is life-changing. While you can approach it from the angle that he's new on the scene and they want him gone, I think it's much more effective to have it happen late into his career. I love the idea of Bruce feeling guilty for not discovering them sooner, putting the blame on himself for wasting years of his life letting them hurt more and more people. It'd be fascinating to see him deal with that struggle and overcome impossible odds to defeat a centuries-old cult. It's so much more interesting to have it shatter his perception entirely and make him reconsider if his mission as Batman is even worth it. So while I do think we need to see the court at some point, it's not their time yet. That story should be the endgame for this crime saga as we continue to develop this universe and everything it stands for in more movies and shows. This is a version of Batman who is only 2 years into his career, so I think that the focus right now should be on building him up to be the Batman we know and love, operating at the height of his power so that when that reveal hits, it hits hard. It needs to be something that shakes him to his core. I want this to make Batman reconsider every decision he's ever made. I think that'll be much more effective if it happens 10 years into his career as Batman. So now that I've addressed that and probably got a lot of you mad at me, let's discuss some real candidates who would make sense in this second outing for Batman. The next one is a pretty obvious choice, that being the Scarecrow. Not the one from The Wizard of Oz, although I would like to see Batman beat him up. I'm talking about Dr. Jonathan Crane, a psychologist obsessed with testing his theories of fear on humanity itself. Using his specially designed toxin, he's able to make people face their worst fears. Personally, he's my second favorite Batman villain behind Clayface, and Scarecrow was made for adaptations. He's got such a creative power set and an incredibly hard design. It's why he played such a big role in Nolan's Batman trilogy and especially the Arkham games. Using his fear gas, you're able to break free from the shackles of realism and engage with some insane hallucinogenic imagery. It's the storyteller's dream as you get to explore Batman's deepest fears head-on in thrilling sequences without having to worry about keeping things grounded. He's basically a cheat code into a temporary fantastical world, and you know I'm gonna jump all over that. And despite the fact that he's been adapted so often, I still feel like we haven't gotten the definitive version of Scarecrow in live action. Reeves has the opportunity here to take this character and finally utilize him at his full potential. And the way to do that is to fully lean into the horror aspect of the character. Batman Begins was a much more realistic take on the character, so the fear sequences weren't all that scary. I need a version of Scarecrow in live action who is dealing with full-on horror. It's honestly insane to me that we haven't gotten a proper Batman horror movie yet. I mean, come on, the guy basically dresses up like a Dracula every night. He is a horror icon. The Batman had some scarier elements to it with a few jump scares and brutal kills, but I'm talking about a movie that puts Batman out of his element and makes him face his fears. There's a whole world of terrifying, toxin-induced sequences to explore that I don't think we've even scratched the surface on. Imagine Mysterio's illusion sequence from Far From Home, and force Bruce to confront his darkest fears in the most terrifying way possible. Whether that be putting him in scenarios where he has to watch his parents die over and over again, or the fear of killing another person and failing Gotham. There's so much you can do with this that fits into this universe so well. The idea of that is giving me chills as I record this. I am so desperate for it. I'll take a hit of that fear toxin myself if I have to. Just give me what I want. You don't understand how bad I've been wanting this for years. What's most exciting for me though is that now is the perfect time to introduce Scarecrow. The central theme of The Batman was about how fear and vengeance aren't effective messages or what Gotham needs right now. He was inspiring a bunch of Reddit incels to do terrible things, and by the end of the film he was hit with the wake-up call that he needs to represent hope for the city. It was so beautiful and exactly the kind of thing I've been looking for in a Batman adaptation. So what is the perfect way to challenge that? You reintroduce fear back into Gotham. It's gonna be real hard to act as a beacon of hope for the city when there's a maniac terrorizing the streets with his fear drugs, giving people the worst trips of their lives. People would be so scared to leave their homes, worried that he'll use them as guinea pigs. And with how easy it is to spread the fear gas, it would be a real challenge for Batman to fight through it all. Seeing him have to fully overcome his concerns in order to be the hero Gotham needs in their darkest hour would be truly inspiring and bring his character arc full circle. Plus, it would be so badass to see Batman shrug off the fear toxin after succumbing to its mind games the entire movie, and then just beat the shit out of Scarecrow in a way only he could. He's a much different villain from the Riddler and a real step up in the power department. We could get some really inspired action scenes and dive deep into Bruce's psyche with a villain like the Scarecrow. It's gonna be hard to find a villain more fitting for this movie than him, so I think for this next idea, 2 may be the move. Just hear me out real quick with this idea. What about Hugo Strange as the main villain of the film? One of Batman's oldest rivals, making his debut in Detective Comics number 36 all the way back in 1940. This dude predates the United States' involvement in World War II. His bald ass has been around for a long time. Despite that, he's hardly ever gotten his respect in live-action adaptations. Hugo Strange is a scientist and psychiatrist who became obsessed with figuring out Batman's secret identity. The idea of psychoanalyzing someone like him drove Strange mad to the point where he was casually dressing up like Batman just to see what made him tick. Outside of Gotham, who honestly adapted so many characters that they had to make new people up, Strange has shockingly never made it into a movie. And granted, Gotham's version of the character was genuinely great. B.D. Wong did a fantastic job in the role. But the fact that the only time he's been brought into live action was in the version without Batman just feels so wrong. His entire motivation is finding out Batman's secret identity. It is a crime to put him in the one version where that does not even exist. There is so much untapped potential with this character, and I'm shocked that nobody has tried to utilize it yet. And also, Dave Bautista is right there. He's the spitting image of Strange down to the silly little glasses and all. It's the easiest slam dunk casting decision of all time, and if they fumble that, somebody's gonna pay with their teeth. The main thing I want to see the Batman Part 2 do is develop more of the Bruce Wayne identity. It's an important part of the character trying to maintain that double life, and while I loved their take on recluse Bruce, it's time to develop him into that playboy whore we all know and love. Introducing Hugo Strange is an incredibly easy way to do that. His fixation on discovering who Batman is started when he realized all of his patients in Arkham were sent there by the Caped Crusader himself. It fascinates him to no end to figure out what drives a person to protect the city like that, and who has the resources to do such a thing. With Bruce now trying to protect the city in new ways, and them teasing how Bella Royale wants to work alongside him, he's finally going to be dragged out of hiding and into the spotlight. It'll be great for Gotham as its public systems are flooded with money, and also, the actual floodwater destroying the city. But more importantly, the money. It's also the perfect time to see Strange start connecting the dots as he sees wealthy elite Bruce Wayne leaving events early and covered in mysterious scars. Now that he's a public figure, it's going to be a lot harder for him to keep that double life afloat, and this movie needs to explore that. Show the consequences of small little mistakes as Strange figures it out. Using him to teach Bruce that lesson and the importance of keeping the secret identity is the move here. I did mention though that I wanted two villains in this hypothetical movie, the other being Professor Pig. First of all, I'd really like to know what he got his PhD in, because there's no way that someone this insane was able to get one in any health sciences. I'm thinking it was more like music theory. I love Professor Pig as a character. He's easily the most disturbing villain in Batman's Rogues Gallery, and that says a lot. He adds an incredible sense of uneasiness to whatever story he's in. To nobody's surprise at this point, he made an appearance in Gotham, which was my first introduction to the character. And while I do think he's as upsetting as ever there, they turned him into more of a twisted vigilante cutting through the corruption in Gotham's police department. It worked for that show, but I need to see Matt Reeves take on a proper Professor Pig. His obsession with the myth of the Pygmalion, where the titular sculptor fell in love with his own creation, has taken over his life. He's someone whose mind is so deranged that he feels the compulsion to transform human bodies into the perfect image in his head. He's a twisted and unhinged artist making his grotesque masterpieces out of human life. He is perfect for this grounded universe and would step things up from the Riddler by a mile. Imagine Batman trying to solve a murder mystery where there's never a motive, just senseless violence to fuel someone's god complex. His presence would help show Bruce just how irredeemable this city is, with someone chopping up its citizens for the love of the game. As thrilling of a villain Professor Pig is though, I'm not sure he can carry a movie by himself. His lack of motivation may be hard to develop an entire 2+ hour narrative around. I think they're two villains who would work incredibly well together. While Strange is more of a mental threat for Bruce, Pig can be the physical threat and a mystery for Batman to solve. They can come together to keep him busy on both fronts in some really exciting ways. It also helps that both of them do similar things with their experiments. Strange creates the mindless monster men, while Pig builds his Dolatrons. I'm sure you could bring those ideas together to create a truly horrific abomination for Batman to fight that still stays within the realm of this grounded universe. As these two deranged mad scientists bring their resources together to make Batman's life a living hell. They operate in similar ways, and I feel like you can do a really interesting story where Hugo Strange is basically manipulating Pig for his own gain. Pig is also the leader of the Circus of Strange, a gang of criminals he has to help him commit these murders. I think it'd be really interesting to have Hugo Strange as the mastermind behind them all. Am I just saying that because they're both named Strange? I mean, yeah, that is kind of where the idea came from, but I promise there's more to this than that. Have Strange release Pig and the circus into Gotham as an experiment to study Batman's response and put him in these impossible scenarios. It could offer some dynamics we haven't seen before and show how obsessed Strange has gotten to the point where he's letting ruthless maniacs out onto the streets just to find answers to his questions. Pig and Strange feel like two characters who would naturally cross paths at some point, so it really surprised me in my research to see that they never have. Maybe I'm wrong, and if so, please direct me to that story. They're two fresh characters that I am dying to see in this universe, and I feel like this is a fun way to bring them together in one movie. It's easy to see just how well they fit the tone, and ideally they can keep Strange around in the long term as an overarching villain. Or maybe even expand on them both in that Arkham series they're working on. Maybe, I don't know, it kinda got reformed into a series in the DCU, and then cancelled maybe. But bring it back for this. You could tell a really compelling series in the vein of something like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest with Hugo Strange running this corrupt asylum. I'm just saying things now, but I am really desperate to see these two with Reeves' incredible writing. If it can't be them though, perhaps it could be another character we've seen in live action already, just waiting for their moment to be done right. None other than Victor Zsasz. Besides having a name that's annoyingly difficult to spell, I can never remember if the Z or S comes first, he's inarguably the most sadistic Batman villain out there. Zsasz started out living the good life. He was raised with a loving family and grew up rich before inheriting his family's company. It seemed like he was set for life and that nothing could go wrong. So then his parents died in a boating accident and he lost everything through gambling and fell into a deep depression. Honestly, he should have expected this living in Gotham. It was bound to all fall apart eventually. At his lowest point, he came to the conclusion that life is meaningless. There's no point to any of this and found new purpose in murdering people to help them escape this worthless existence and put everyone out of their misery. With nothing but an extremely nihilistic worldview and the scars on his body representing each of his victims, he set out to liberate everyone from their pointless lives. Zsasz has made a few appearances in stuff like Gotham and Birds of Prey, but he's always been this side character, and he's often adapted as a more lighthearted person. I need to see the most depressed man alive with this truly deranged view of the world. He might only seem like a side character now, but I feel like with the right writing, you could easily elevate him into a top-tier Batman villain. He's basically the opposite of Batman, and I feel like that idea doesn't get highlighted enough. There is such an interesting dichotomy between him and Bruce that I would love to study in a movie like this. What I think makes Zsasz so interesting is that he's a direct challenge of Bruce's no-kill rule and hopeful idealistics. The no-kill rule stems from the idea that all human life is valuable and nobody is beyond saving. Bruce knows firsthand the devastating effects of how death can ruin someone's life, and has vowed to make sure nobody has to experience that again. He sees the value in life and treats it like the gift it is, wanting everyone to not waste the little time they have on this space rock with their loved ones. Zsasz, on the other hand, is the exact opposite of that. After he lost his parents, it drove him to dark places where he saw murder as his only path forward. His bleak point of view is a direct contrast to the no-kill rule as he murders people to free them from their shackles of life. With Batman now trying to represent hope and keep this city safe, Zsasz is the exact kind of shakeup he needs to really challenge his beliefs. Someone who would make him reevaluate his rule and force him to confront the idea that nobody is beyond saving. Would his stay in Arkham really help someone as cruel and barbaric as Zsasz? It's those kind of questions and themes that make Batman so interesting to watch. A story that confronts hope and nihilism head-on and challenges Bruce to stay true to his moral compass would be perfect for this grounded universe. We can get another detective story out of these murders and dive deep into Bruce's psyche through the lens of a serial killer who can't stop. If that doesn't sound good to you, I don't know what will. But if you aren't convinced, I have one more villain in mind who I want to talk about. I'm sorry I've made you wait this long, but it's finally time to talk about Condiment King. That's right, baby, it's not a bit this time. Sit down and relax because I'm going to tell you all about why we need to see Condiment King in the Batman Part 2. And there we are, just over an hour later. We laughed, we cried, we bonded together over the potential for Matt Reeves, the Condiment King. But if you still aren't satisfied after that, here's our real last candidate here tonight. The Mad Hatter is a villain I almost didn't include in this video. Truthfully, for the longest time, I didn't really care for the Mad Hatter. He seemed more style than substance to me, and just another gimmicky villain without anything unique to offer. He felt a lot of the time like discount Scarecrow, but after doing the research for this video, I feel embarrassed to have ever thought that. I clearly owe him an apology. I was not familiar with his game at all. It's for reasons like this that we need a mainstream Mad Hatter adaptation, because with the right writing, I think he could be something special. Jervis Tetch grew up obsessed with the Alice in Wonderland story, hence why he ripped off his entire identity for his villain persona. Dude couldn't even come up with an original idea and he thinks he could step up to Batman. SMH. I gotta say that part out loud because you can't see me shaking my head right now. His mind is completely gone. What used to be a brilliant scientist has been replaced by a lunatic doing anything he can to live out the stories of the fictional Mad Hatter and find his Alice. He's creepy, unsettling, and dangerously desperate. With his ability to mind control others, he becomes a real threat in a way that Batman usually doesn't have to deal with as friends become foe. He's more than the one-note Alice in Wonderland quoting villain I thought him to be at first. There are some really interesting angles to approach this character from that are just waiting to catapult him into the stratosphere of popularity. There is one big thing that comes up with the Mad Hatter that can't be ignored, which is the fact that as of late, DC have turned him into a PDF file. I have no clue if YouTube will take me out back and have me shot for saying the actual word, so I'm just going to refer to him as the file type from now on. I think making that his entire thing is incredibly lazy and uninspired. Obviously, we all hate PDF files. PNG is so much better, but turning him into one was an incredibly easy way to make the audience want to see Batman kick his ass. Personally though, I feel like it's a crutch they've started to lean on way too heavily with this character. It's much more interesting to me if you focus on escapism with this villain. That is where the money's at. Make him infatuated with Alice in the sense that she's someone who doesn't love him back, and tell a story about how crippling the loneliness epidemic can be. It's doing the character a disservice to only define him as a PDF file when he can be so much more than that. With how awful Gotham City is, people are always going to look for a way to escape from reality. For Jervis, Alice in Wonderland was his way to ease his mind and feel comfortable for once. But reading the books wasn't enough. He's too lonely in real life and needed to live out these fantasies. With his mind control technology, he can do just that. He can offer people a chance to escape this cursed city and take their minds down the rabbit hole with his technology. All for it to be one big trap as he gets to make Wonderland real and try and fix Gotham through mind control. It's a much more interesting approach, and continues to build out Gotham as a dreadful place to live in. Why do people still live there? I get the rent's probably cheap, but is it worth it when you got people like the Mad Hatter trying to mind control you every other Thursday? On top of that all though, it continues to build out the argument for why Batman is needed as a symbol of hope right now. People need someone to give them faith that tomorrow is going to be a better day. Without that, they're turning to a literal Mad Hatter for any kind of relief in this dark, careless world. It's the ideal story to highlight how important hope is to Gotham right now, and would go a long way in establishing Batman as a beacon of optimism for its citizens as he strikes fear into the hearts of criminals everywhere. It took me a while to see it, but through the lens of escapism, I finally understand the Mad Hatter. He's deserving an adaptation that can do him right and move past any problematic motivations to show a truly insane and desperate loner. And there we have it. Every single Batman villain and their potential in this universe covered in excruciating detail. And if you think I missed someone, you probably just weren't paying attention and should go rewatch the video. I promise you they're in there somewhere. You just gotta look hard enough. But that means it's time to pick a winner and crown our second ever Bat-chelor. With some really great options, it's once again very hard to decide on who the best choice is. The Court of Owls continue the themes of corruption. Scarecrow offers an in-depth exploration of fear. Hugo Strange tackles identity, while Zsasz and Mad Hatter contrast the new hopeful tone. I'm not going to do a cop-out like last time and say all of them, but I do hope one day we see each and every one of these characters make it into the universe. All that being said, I think I'm going to give this rose to Hugo Strange and Professor Pig. I only bought one, so they're gonna have to share it, but I hope they're honored at least. I really considered giving this to Scarecrow, but at the end of the day, I'll always jump on the opportunity to see new characters adapted into a movie. Their presence feels like such a natural stepping stone for this universe and would help continue to develop Batman in really interesting ways. My very real producers are trying to take me off the air because I'm going long, but I didn't even get a chance to talk about how characters like the Penguin and Harvey Dent need to be in this movie. After the Penguin's masterful first season, I am so desperate to see him get all of his bones turned to dust by Batman in the most brutal ways possible. Colin Farrell said he's going to be in 6 scenes of this movie, so all 6 scenes better be that disgusting loser getting pummeled. Meanwhile, Two-Face is easily the most fitting character for this universe, but I need Harvey built up as the DA over a few films to make that turn hit even harder. I talked a little more about that and other villains in the previous video, so make sure to go and watch that if you want to hear some outdated takes on Batman villains that I absolutely stand by. I think there's a lot of room to work within this realistic universe and showcase some lesser known characters who haven't gotten their time to shine yet. The Batman redefined the Riddler while still keeping the core of the character alive, and the Penguin turned Oswald into the most disturbing Batman villain to date. At the end of the day, as long as Matt Reeves is in charge, I have faith that whatever they do is going to be a hit. He's proven time and time again that he understands these characters better than anyone and has an incredibly inspired vision for this universe. I trust he knows what he's doing and will be seated for the Batman Part 2 when it finally releases in 2026? Oh god, I might not make it until then. Every day without more of Pattinson's Batman in my life is agony. This is going to be my villain origin story, I think. Maybe I'll be the villain of the next movie at this point. Oh my god, this is how it all starts for me. I gotta start thinking about gimmicks. Maybe I can become the Condiment King. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and end things here before I start to lose my mind. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed what I had to say, feel free to give the video a like and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Who do you want to see as the villain in the Batman Part 2? I would love to hear what everyone has to say and continue the conversation down below. And if you want to see another video like this, you can click right over here. If you don't do it, they're gonna delay the movie again, and if that happens, I'm straight up ending it all. So please, save my life and subscribe.